Optima Living operates high-quality seniors living communities across the lands now known as Alberta and British Columbia, traditional territories of diverse Indigenous peoples. We acknowledge that the lands where our communities stand and that our staff and residents call home are the traditional territories of many First Nations people, and we recognize their history. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm really excited today to talk about this idea of scams. What they are, what they mean, why it's important to think about them, why it's important to actually address them, and more importantly, to speak with a really awesome expert, Constable Chantelle Kelly. What is a scam? Let's start there. Like, how do you define a scam?
The main premise of a scam is they're trying to get money out of you or your personal information. It's just how they go about it, the story that they tell you, the means of how they contact you, but in essence, it's all the same. It's just being able to pinpoint where someone's giving you a sob story or they're giving you some sort of information that you can dissect a difference between a scam or not.
Why do people scam others?
So basically, they're looking for money. There's lots of people that, they need the money for usually an addiction purpose, so for drugs or alcohol. We also have a lot of scams happening overseas where this is basically their income, and they believe Canadians have a lot of money and they wish to take that money. So in essence, they're trying to steal your identity to open accounts, or they're trying to get money from you. But basically, that's the premise behind a scam.
Can you give me some examples of day-to-day scams that affect seniors that you've seen that are regularly there?
Okay. So I'm going to probably give you at least 3 that I know that are more apparent when it comes to seniors. Number 1 that we're seeing a high rise in at the moment is what we call the grandparent scam, also sometimes known as the emergency scam, but basically it's all very similar. You get a phone call, usually it's a phone call because they want to have that conversation with you, in which you answer the phone. And so they'll say something like grandma or grandpa. And at that point, usually, maybe the person on the other line will say something like, "Oh, Emma, is that you?" So now you've given them a name, right? So they'll give you a story. And the premise behind it is that then the next step is I need money. So I need money to get out of the country and come home. I need money. I'm in a hospital, maybe in a different country, and I need to pay the bill. It could be I'm in jail and I need bail money. So those are typically the ones that we'll hear. Generally, they'll follow it up to make it a little bit more realistic and believable. We'll say something like, okay, well, the police officer is going to give you a call back, or my lawyer is going to give you a call back and explain what's going on. So then someone will either come on the line, or you hang up and someone else will call and they'll say that they're, try to verify the story. It might be a lawyer, police officer saying, yeah, no, Emma was picked up. We don't believe, she did anything, but they'll say we need the bail money. And there's always a sense of urgency. With scams, there's a sense of urgency because they don't want you to take the time to think about it. So they might say, well, Emma's court is coming up in an hour. If she doesn't have the bail money by then, she's going to have to stay in jail. And then at that point, they want the money. So there's going to be a variety of ways they want money. They're either going to say they want you to wire transfer and they'll give you an account. They'll say sometimes we've seen gift cards. We need you to purchase $1,000 in gift cards. And then we want you to call back with the numbers scratch the numbers on the back and call us and give us the numbers. Or we've seen sending cash in the mail. We've actually seen them say, put this money in a box, wrap it up, send it to this address. We've also seen where they'll say you need to go get cash and some courier will pick it up at the door and they'll courier it back to us. And then basically you send the money, either you never hear from them again, or sometimes there'll always be a follow-up. They want more because they've already seen that you've done it once. They'll come up and create another story of, oh, well, we need a little bit more. But that's basically how an emergency grandparent scam works.
So if you're a naturally trusting person, I'm a naturally trusting person, do you become do you have to change your attitude on how you like that you become a naturally non-trusting person, or you naturally think that people are going to scam you? Or is it just a set of questions
I
that
think
one
it's
should always
just being
ask?
aware of certain elements of a scam that you just need to be aware of. So in that one, again, the sense of urgency, money. The minute anybody is asking for money, we need to just take a moment and pause and think about it. In this instance, if we ever get those phone calls, I understand people want to help out their family, but it's a matter of, okay, I'm going to verify this story. Is it possible that a grandchild could need some assistance from you? Absolutely. But at that point, if one of your grandchildren is in need, I would verify the story first, and not the urgency not to send money. I would never send money through a courier, through a wire transfer, or ever buy prepaid credit cards or gift cards and send numbers on the back. It just doesn't happen.
Money, I think, makes sense. Well, I think money is somewhat straightforward in terms of if someone's asking you to physically part with money
Yeah.
and you have to go through a process.
Yeah.
Now, inevitably, once a week, I'll get a text or I'll get a WhatsApp from my mother about something, right, that she's being sent or being asked or what. That seems to be a little bit more complicated because it doesn't seem like there may be an exact money thing yet. There's a
Right.
here, click here.
Yes.
So let's
Yes.
talk about the other types of scams.
Yeah, so the other one is looking for personal information. So you're going to get that through phones, text messages usually, or emails through the computer. I'm very leery. I always tell seniors to never click on links. So they're basically what they're doing is trying to get your personal information or get into your computer. So you need to be very wary. So you're going to get the text message saying, it could be as simple as your Netflix account has been deactivated. Please log in to verify your account information. It could be a text message from a bank that says, we suspect fraudulent activity. Please log in to verify. It could be an email saying, your Bell account or your Direct Energy account, something's fraudulent, click on the link. So what they're basically getting you to do is when you click on the link, it'll take you to the website of said business organization that looks exactly like that organization or business. And what they're trying to get you to do is then, okay, so I click the link on my text message, it goes to BMO Bank. It's asking me for my username or email and my password. Okay, so you're giving them your username or email, you're giving them the password. Now they've actually got the inside of your bank account. Same as you're still say, well, what's the big deal of the Netflix account? So say you get an email saying Netflix account has been suspended. Please log in to verify your information or to update your credit card information. So you log in, you put your username, password. Now you're inside the Netflix. Looks like Netflix, and now basically you've given them the inside of that. What's the big deal? Well, you paid by credit card. So now your credit card information is behind the scenes in that account. So now they have access to that.
It's not just because they want to watch TV.
Not because they just want to watch TV. So the interesting things too, a lot of people will get too is say they're on a computer. Generally, this happens on computer then versus a cell phone or a tablet, where you'll get the pop-up message. You have you've been hacked or something's wrong with your account. There's a virus and ding, ding, ding. Sometimes there'll be noises. Sometimes it'll just be a box. It'll give you a number to call. They usually use Microsoft because it's a name that most people know. And maybe your computer might even freeze. And they'll say, call this number. So you call this number, it's somebody on the other line, pretending to be basically Microsoft and saying, there's a virus on your computer or this is happening on your computer. And usually it goes two ways. They'll say, for $99, we can get in and fix everything up, no problem. Okay, well, that sounds reasonable. So you give them your credit card information and they charge you for the $99 when there wasn't actually anything wrong with your computer. The worst part on the other end is that they'll say, well, they can fix your computer and they'll get you through the process of getting into your computer. So they want control of your computer. So you can actually see the mouse being controlled by them because you've allowed them the access, thinking that they're going to fix everything in your computer. And two things on that way. So then they'll either ransom. So they'll say, well, we now have access to your computer. We have everything in here. You need to pay this much money before we'll exit the computer, like ransom, basically.
They tell that on the call.
They'll tell you right on the call. The second one is they'll click around and do things, but they have gained access to control for the inside of your computer. So if you do any online banking, your passwords are stored there. Anything stored in there, then they have access to that. So that is one you need to be very careful of. So I always tell people, if the pop-up comes up, unplug the computer, shut it down and unplug it and wait.
Yeah.
Plug it back in. If you notice anything different about the computer, anything that seems weird, shut it off and bring it to a reputable computer company to get it checked out. But you don't call the number, and you don't provide any personal information. You don't allow them access to your computer, and you don't give them your credit card information to pay for anything.
Anything that someone's calling you about can wait at least 24 hours.
Absolutely. So not making any irrational decisions, being careful of the numbers that you're picking up. Now, we have a thing called spoofing where they can basically put whatever number that they want to come up on your cell phone or your home phone is done computer generated. So they can have whatever number. So they'll put a local number because you're more likely to answer maybe a local number. They might put a number that might be from where maybe a government site might be. So they're basically can put numbers. I've even had where they put police detachment numbers. So it'll come up as RCMP or Edmonton Police. And so people obviously are more likely to answer it. So you need to be very careful, even if it is a police officer calling, get the information, okay, and then hang up and then call that police detachment and determine if it's legitimate or not. Not the number they left you, not the number they gave you, right? Look up the proper number and then verify all that information.
Yeah, so okay, that's really interesting because I've seen the spoof before, but I also have heard a lot about it. In fact, interesting enough, last week I got a call from the CRA and it said CRA on the phone and someone was on the other line. How do you know if it's legitimately an organization that's reputable that's calling you or not?
Absolutely. So basically what I suggest is, again, you might have your bank calling you saying, oh, we can offer you this interest rate versus this interest rate, please just give us your credit card information and we'll verify. I always say, whether it's through a phone call or through an email or text message, take the information they give you, but then I leave it. And then I ensure that I call back the correct organization or business to verify, even CRA. I've had those conversations too with them, and I'm like, okay, I get the information from them, and then I call the actual CRA number to verify if it's true or not. Same as if your bank calls or your, Direct Energy or another company that you might use for your home services. I leave it, contact the correct number that you can find on the bill or online, and then verify if there's anything wrong. Especially the CRA one, we get lots of text messages or you get phone calls saying, you owe taxes, and if you don't pay, we get that you're going to be arrested, deported, your assets seized, all those things. We also get the opposite, where you get the text messages saying you got a refund, and then click the link to get your refund. So you click the link, the website pops up, it looks exactly like the CRA, but now they just want you to put in your name, your social insurance number, and the amount, that they're supposed to refund you. And now you've just given them information. Or they'll say, click on your banking information to get direct deposit. Well, now you've just given them all your banking information. So it's just, again, just being very mindful of the information you give, not clicking links, verifying with the business or organization on the proper number that you find to determine if there's anything wrong with your account.
Now, on these, so we talked a little bit about the grandfather or the grandparent scam, the emergent scam. We talked a little bit about like the CRA or others calling you.
Yes.
Are there other ones that are very common that people should just immediately just be aware of because they're that common or regular?
We do have lots of what we call prize scams too, where you'll get a phone call from somebody saying you've won something, right? So you've won a sweepstakes, you've won a car, vacation money, whatever it might be. Again, they'll give a sense of urgency, like, well, if you don't accept us right now, we're going to have to draw for the next person. Again, so you're not thinking, you're like, okay, well, I don't want to give up that vacation or that car, but maybe you don't even remember entering that sort of sweepstakes or that sort of raffle or whatever it might be. And again, usually there's always a sense where there's money needed, right? So we got to pay the taxes, the import fees, this or that. Usually they keep it relatively low, so it doesn't seem like a lot. So maybe you're only paying $5,000 or $500 for a $5,000 vacation type thing. But the minute you have to pay something up front, it's a scam.
Now, I guess there's also scams around something you may buy, like a product that's not legit, right? And does that happen a lot to seniors?
Yes, we do see that. Usually it's a matter of, say, a senior scrolling, say, on social media. Usually, I'm going to give example, Facebook. So they're scrolling on Facebook and, this cream comes up, free trial, and they're like, oh, I think I'd like to try this cream. Again, they click the link, they go in, they, set everything up. Usually you have to put your credit card information in, but it's free. But, and then they get the product and maybe they're like, I don't really like it, I'd like to cancel. Well, they sometimes don't read the fine print, right? So there might be stipulations of you need to give 90 days notice for cancellation, or they don't realize that it's going to be an auto bill, right?
Yeah.
And so, months go by and they're trying to cancel it and it's not happening. And, maybe they're being charged, $75 a month for several months. And to some people, that's a lot of money. So we do see things like that. Even things like Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace, people are, buying and selling on there and they're getting scammed. Typically, we see that in the form of, say you're selling something or you're buying something, and somebody wants a deposit, right? We're seeing a lot of that. So you want this item, okay, well, I have 5 other people looking at it. So if you want this item, you need to give me a deposit. So then they e-transfer them a deposit, and then the person is no longer on that site.
Is there and maybe there isn't, but it's always worth asking is, and my father always says, if you don't ask, you don't get. So I might as well start there,
Okay.
is to say, is there a set of foolproof questions that people can either ask the scammer? So if they're, so I guess if I were looking at what you've said, I'd say the first set of questions would be, is someone asking me for an urgent, like something in an urgent
Right.
way, right? Like very, very quickly. Is someone asking me not to tell anyone anything? Is someone asking me for money or personal information? We've talked about those. But you get past those.
Right.
Is there a set of questions that one could ask? Let's say, for instance, we're in the romance part. Is there a set of questions you could ask that person on the other end that very quickly would either stump them up or would give you a sense of, wait a second, everything is not as...
Right. I would think not as much questions, but just the circumstances. Things like, they don't live in the same area as you. They can't meet. Their story is almost very elaborate, right? Their business or their why they're overseas. It seems to be elaborate to kind of pull you in. Why they can't video chat. Why does it always have to be through text message? Things like that. Different with the emergency scam. I mean, you could ask someone right off the hop a question to that grandchild that person pretending to be your grandchild that maybe you and
like
her or
what are
him
your
would
father
know,
and mother's names?
right?
Or what are your...
But again, I mean, the likelihood of it being legitimate, probably very slim. But again, it's just more of looking for the urgency. Anybody that wants money from you or personal information, red flag, clicking any links, things like that. Just taking a moment to not make an irrational decision probably is the best. Time. I think time is probably the best.
And I feel like time, but also speak to someone that you trust about it and just verify that. So for instance, I would think about if you're being asked to send money, speak to someone who you regularly talk to about money. If you go to a banker, you've got a personal advisor, if you got someone and say, hey, I'm being asked to do this, what do you think?
Absolutely.
And get that sort of sense of, let me talk to someone who I can trust about this so that I can at least verify something wrong is something right. So,
And it's also educating other people, like, and banks and other stores are tending to do this a bit more. But you'll get, bank tellers when someone is coming to ask for, $36,000 to be wire transferred. They're generally asking those questions more and more.
yeah.
Sometimes you will have the victim that's so, into the scam and they've been so, brainwashed to thinking the scam is true that they'll lie, right? They'll tell a different story.
They'll justify it.
They'll justify it. We also have people, we're trying to train more people, say in businesses such as, I'm just going to give an example where you might get gift cards. So say Shoppers Drug Mart, where you're now buying 10 gift cards at $100 a gift card. And now we have tellers maybe just asking a question, right?
Yeah.
Saying, and sometimes we'll have victims that will make up a story saying, oh no, these are for gifts, right? Because they've been, they're into the scam. But we are having people more asking questions on the outside. But it's just taking the time to think about, is this the right decision?
if we think a little bit about this idea of reporting, and you talked about this earlier.
Yes.
So part of me, in my coming back to my Apple Watch story, is I want to get this guy, right? Like you get into this, like, hold on a second, like,
Yeah.
fine, I've been scammed, but I want to help other people.
Right.
But I'm also there's at least for a period of time there was this like, I want to get
Yes.
like, I want to be the detective to figure this out and find this stuff. And what's the where and what should one do? So
Okay.
what's one, okay, if I'm going to go and report it, what will reporting do?
Okay.
And why would I report?
Absolutely.
And I can see how if you talk about it to people, you're helping others. I think there's something there that people should know about saying, look, if you've been scammed, take the time to tell others, because if nothing else, you're going to help others. And you're going to be
Absolutely.
surprised how many people will talk about their own
Right.
stories.
Right.
But if we go to this reporting thing, right? So why should someone report? What will it actually do? Is it going to create more havoc and hassle for me by reporting that in? Like,
Right.
how does that work?
So with reporting, we tend to say if you've lost money, a crime has occurred, and we ask you to contact your local police station to report it. If you've just come across a scam, which we do all day, every day, we don't ask people to report that, just due to the fact that we would be inundated all day with scams. There is an option of contacting the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. You can do that online, or you can do through phone call, but I believe there's an online reporting system. And those are the people that gather the information. They're the data collectors, and they're the one that kind of educate law enforcement personnel as to what scams are coming, what are new, what's up and coming. So they kind of give us the information. But if you've been scammed out of giving personal information, or you've been you've lost money, we ask that you report it. What does that usually look like? Well, you will have to attend a police detachment or station depending on where you live. They're going to ask you to give a statement. So that's either going to be recorded, or it's going to be a paper form of exactly what happened. Also saving any information that you can give. So that might be bank statements, emails, text messages as evidence. So they're going to ask you to hand that all in. Now the problem is, as I said, is where does it go from there? So usually investigators will take a look at the entire file to determine what's the likelihood that this is going to go anywhere. So there is some things that we can, we can trace. Again, it gets really complicated when we get into cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, because we also get people asking for money through that. But then we just determine, what's the likelihood. Again, as I said, these are usually foreign bank accounts that are open with fraudulent information. It's very hard to track a lot of this information. Sometimes it's a little bit easier if it's something local, like again for Facebook Marketplace, where maybe we can then use it to maybe find that person using emails, or we set up something where we go them ourselves to purchase something.
And is there a threshold where you worry about it and you don't? Like, I feel like
No, we don't necessarily have a threshold. It's a matter of if we have the time to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Again, we get so many frauds a day. It's a matter of which ones we can put the time and the effort in. So say, for example, we're trying to get information on a bank account. We have to write warrants for that. We'll call them production warrants. These take hours. So although there's no threshold, some are a lot more easy to determine, can we do this or not?
And I would assume, though, that people should still take the time to call.
Absolutely.
Because while we may all think it's a one-off and we're unique,
a lot of times we connect the dots.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and it sounds like the odds, if you've been scammed, let's assume that the average person is quite smart.
Yep.
If you've been scammed, it means other people have been scammed.
Absolutely.
It also means that someone took a lot of time and effort to get to the point where they're able to scam you properly.
Right.
And so they're probably going to use that more than one time.
Absolutely.
And so if you can help people connect the dots, you can help others.
Absolutely. And if that one person might be responsible for hundreds of frauds. So if we can get that person from them creating any more havoc, we've saved some additional victims. And again, to connect the dots and reporting it, and you never know, maybe we won't be able to do anything for that file at that moment, but maybe 4 months down the road, something else connects the dots to that.
simple thing. You get bills at home, you get other stuff, you take that paper and you recycle it. When should people be worried about, hold on, I shouldn't recycle, just I should actually shred it, or I should tear it up or whatever? Like, what pieces of information are actually vital to say, hold on, even if it's junk mail, but it came to your address and your name, what should people be careful of when it comes to mail and paper?
Usually I say if you have the option of going for email, sending bills and information, if you can move to that and then print them out at home instead of having them mailed to you. A lot of the Canada Revenue Agency all still go by mail. Otherwise, if you're going to get rid of personal information at home, I always say shred it. Especially if it has, you know, a portion of your SIN number on there, credit card information, probably are the bigger things. Even birth dates, things like that. Because if they have your address, your name, your date of birth, and your social insurance number, they can pretty much open any account they want. Keeping some of that, if you have any important personal documents that have all that information, but you need to keep it, we always say the best route to do that in case of a break and enter would be to keep it in a safe.
I mean, at Optima, we talk a lot about a concept called gifts of failure. And that as an organization, one of our values is to do the right thing, but that means that we'll do the wrong thing sometimes.
Absolutely.
And that if we fail, we should take the opportunity to unpack it as a gift and to share it, to understand it, and to think about what we do different. As you're saying that, I wonder if, is there like a regular updated place where you can see the scams, like the in-fed scams, or something that we could then actually, maybe every month we sit down with our residents and we play a little bit of a game saying, let's pick out, let's do Jeopardy of scams, like what could be a scam or not, or let's walk through some case examples of what we would do in a case. And
I would say the best place to get the most up-to-date scams and information about a variety of scams is probably the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre website. They have like a little fraud book that you can go through of all the different scams. They'll update of, you know, how much money's been lost by Canadian citizens in this fraud or this fraud. You know, this one is coming up. This one we're seeing more often. I'd say that website you can get a lot of information through that website as to what's current. Yeah.
If we can just find ways to just make it more commonplace and not embarrass people, but actually allow them to understand that by talking to people about your experiences, you're actually helping so many more people.
And I think it's like anything else with education. It has to be continual because, you know, you might have been in part of a fraud presentation 5 years ago. Well, it's like anything else. You're going to start forgetting things. You're going to start maybe, you know, new scams have come up that you never heard about. Maybe there's a new way or a new story that they tell you or a new way they contact you. It's like just always refreshing your memory and keeping that conversation up and running.
We've talked about some really important topics today, particularly around scams. The effect they have on individuals, the effect they have on society and the people around you, but also the positive impact that you can have by taking the time to share a story. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us about what topics you'd like to hear about, what you'd like to learn about. Tell us what's intriguing you, what's scaring you. What are topics that for the seniors in your life, for the elders that you love in your life, would be relevant topics, or for you, you're curious about. So feel free to leave a note, write us on Instagram, leave it on our website, or just in the comments section on YouTube, and we'll catch that. And I promise you, we'll start to create more content that's relevant to you, because that's what we do this for.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of OLTV. If you liked what you saw and you want to watch more, like this video and subscribe to the Optima Living channel right here on YouTube.